Man, I love our intro. What's up, everybody? What's good? What is happening? Welcome to the Just Joking podcast. I am one half of the podcast king,
And I'm Joe.
and we are coming at you live in full effect on YouTube and Facebook. You can find us at the Just Joking podcast if you are listening to this on the audio playback. But for this is live on YouTube and Facebook. So if you're catching this live or if you're catching this on the replay, do us a favor. Hit that like button. The Just Joking podcast is a podcast and a live stream in which Joe and I talk about whatever we want to talk about. But the space is typically around military subjects, what's going on in the world, mental health, and everything all wrapped up in between and all through all of that. Okay. So, Joe, what's up, man? What's good? What's cracking?
What's going on, man? So nothing new. Well, some new stuff. Got a new job.
Hey,
Gonna be
hold
start.
on. Hold on.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah, got a new job. Gonna be starting that in about 3 weeks. Just broke the news to my current employer job, and so that was nice. It was good to get that like weight off my chest because it was causing me a lot of anxiety. Just kind of like not being fully honest with people, but I had to because I had lost a previous opportunity because of COVID,
Mhm.
because of the shutdown and things just stopped moving and the process took so long that they just pulled the position, so I had to wait till a new position opened up in the location or the area I wanted to go to. So now I got it. Now it's starting here in about 3 weeks, and it's nice to finally get that all off my chest and start that ball rolling.
Let's go. So, is it around the same current job or career that you're doing right now?
Yeah, same career, a little bit of a promotion, which is nice. Every little bit counts.
And let me ask you this: what were the steps that was involved? Did you have to rewrite your resume? Was there an interview? Was the interview in person? What kind of prep did you do for it?
So I typically rewrite my resume every 3 to 4 months, anyways. Um, I I constantly look, even if I'm at a position that I really enjoy, because you just never know. Stuff comes up or a new position that's just really cool. Um, I typically update it 3 to 4 months, but I also will update it based off of an announcement that I'm interested in. Because a general resume works, but it's not going to make you shine. So rewriting your previous experience in a way that's relevant to the announcement that you want is always a smart thing to do. It's always a really good thing to do because there's a lot in the resumes as it is, especially depending on where you work and what you do. Um, but it's great to put the relevant information towards the top. That's a big key, and showing which positions highlight the correct uh, experience or skills that you're trying to talk about. So um, every 3 to 4 months, and then based off of position. So when this position was announced that I wanted, I redid the resume specifically for this one because I had a previous position that worked in the same domain,
Okay.
same environment. There we go. So it really was one of those things where I had perfect prior experience to work for where I'm going to be working at. So really excited. Resumes, people don't understand the importance of just how good the resumes are. It was supposed to be an in-person interview, but then somebody on the panel uh, got sick or something, and they had to do it virtually, which is fine, which works for me. I feel like my appearance might be a little jarring for some people who work where I work. So it's like and that's on me. That's not necessarily fair to professionals. You know what I mean? Like they can make professional decisions, but in my head, I was like, I kind of like the virtual thing because I know I look crazy with the giant beard and the long hair and all that stuff. So
We are going to talk about that a little bit later on, actually. That speaks to, it's kind of funny because you bringing up your job and me asking questions as you were talking about it. I said, oh, this is perfect because part of the main thing that we're talking about today is that transition of service members, whether it was 4 years, 6 years, 10 years, or 20 plus. Some of the things that we've observed that happened with us over about 10 years ago, and even now to this day, that we can kind of leave out there as tidbits or our observations of what we've noticed. Now, this isn't going to be an all-encompassing list. We don't have enough time for that. But what I'm also going to do as well for the people that will check this out, after this live stream is done, if you come back to our Facebook page, which is in the description link, or YouTube, I'm also going to include resources that help me, resources that I've sent to other veterans about resume writing, dress and appearance, how to do interviews, all of that stuff. I'm going to put it in a one-stop shop. So I'm going to do a lot of the work for you, because if you go to Google, you can go to Google and there's a ton of information, a lot of different links and stuff, but I'm going to bubble up some of the succinct and easy to kind of navigate links that you can go to. Maybe you can share this page with that person as well to just hear our experiences and also have access to those links. So if you're listening to this on audio, come over to the Facebook or YouTube page. If you're watching this on those pages, then we're gonna have the links in there after the show. So that's good.
How you doing?
Hey, brother, I am living the dream. And I always say that and laugh because there's this one particular person. Shout out to Daz. I used to be stationed with him. He was a pilot in the Air Force. I want to say he's out now, but he used to always say, hey, man, I'm living a dream. Always a positive person. I reach out to him from time to time because he thinks different. And that's something that I like to do as well. I like to think a little bit different, man. But for me, man, dude, my health is, good for as much as one can be when you have cardiac disease. Life's good, man. I'm stress free at the moment, so I can't complain. I don't have a new job or a promotion, but I love where I'm at. I love the team that I'm working with, and I don't plan on changing that anytime soon.
Yeah. That's good, man. That's good.
All right.
Yeah, I'm one of those people where I typically move around a lot, like from position to position every about 5-ish years.
Mhm.
It's probably a bad habit just from time served in the military, and but I think with this one, I might stick with this one for about 10 years.
Yeah, I mean, there's some pros and cons to it. Like, for example, you and I were both in over 9 years, and what you observe, whether you're enlisted or military, is that you move around every 3 to 4 to 5 years. You don't really stay in one place if you're active duty like that often.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of good and bad that comes with that. The bad is you don't get that consistency, that local SME, which is subject matter expert in that unit, in that field, or like that area. But the pros are you get the chance to get to a different culture, because whether you're doing the job in Idaho or Mississippi, if your job title is the same, there's not going to be a lot that's different. You might have to account for where you're at per
Yeah.
se, but there's not going to be a lot that's different about the job. But what will be different is the culture of where you're at, the location, not just at the base, but outside of the base as well. So now that I've been out, I've seen value in sticking in one place. I've been at the same job since 2015, 2016. And for me, like I said, it's a good fit right now. There's been a couple of internal promotions that have worked out for me. And unless something changes, I'll turn around and win one of these Mega Millions or Powerballs here that's almost 500 million. I like the work that I do. I'll say what I do for the people out there. I work IT for the VA, and the services and things that I work for, I'm also a user of. So I have a vested interest when I go to log into va.gov, and I understand that I have to use an API, which is an application programming interface that helps me not just log into one system, but several other systems. And that as long as that API works good, I should be able to get into those other systems seamlessly. 99% of the time, it works as advertised. That 1% that it doesn't, it usually gets fixed pretty fast. So I don't work healthcare VA. I always have to tell people that because people so or benefits. Hey man, I'm trying to figure out. Hey, I'm trying to figure it out too.
Yeah, ain't we all?
But for the most part, I like what I do. I'm directly impacted by the work that I'm doing as well. So I have a vested interest in not just doing a quality job myself, but making sure that the team that's around me, whether they're veterans or not, also is doing a quality job. So let's get into today's story. We only have one story today, and then we're going to get into the main topic, which is things to consider as you're getting out if you're a veteran. And we've already kind of talked about some of it, but I'm going to share my experiences. Joe's going to share some of his experiences. If we have any live viewers on, I'd like to get the live viewers. If you have any tips to contribute as well, and we'll talk about those for the people that might be listening. And then we would close out with a word of the day and wrap this show up. So, Joseph, aka Nemo, have you heard of the word incel?
Yes.
What is the word incel to you?
So, as I understand it, it means involuntarily celibate.
Okay. And celibate's a big word. What does celibate mean?
No sex.
No sex. So does that mean BJs are off the table as well?
I think when used in the context of the people who describe themselves as such, I think it means that there's just nothing going on.
Okay. All right. So incel, which is short for involuntary celibate, that's INCEL. And it's a word that I was only recently introduced to within maybe the last 2 years. I don't
Mhm.
know. Did you hear of that word prior to 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I've been on the internet a long time. It's
Okay.
been it's been around a hot minute.
See, and that's interesting to hear that from you because I had only heard about it when it was involving a shooting,
Mm.
and there seems to be a negative connotation around the word incel. So my reason for bringing this story up is I kind of want to challenge the negative connotation that goes around the word, and I'm going to challenge it not just to the viewers, but to you as well. So I'm going to share my screen and bring up the first story. And I want you to read the headline. So the headline, and this was from justice.gov. All right. So this was from a federal website, Office of Public Affairs. Ohio man pleads guilty to attempting hate crime. The defendant plotted to conduct a mass shooting of women. So this is very specific for what he was wanting to accomplish. And let's read what happened. A local self-identified incel. These are the first 5 words of this press release. Pleaded guilty in U.S. District Court for the Southern District of Ohio today for attempting to conduct a mass shooting. Tress
Of
Ginkgo,
women.
of women. What
That's
I say?
very important. No, you didn't say
Oh,
anything after mass shooting. It's very important that those all of that is connected because it 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 it, it reads for a reason that way. You know what I mean?
mm-hmm. Now Trace Ginkgo, which I had to look him up. He's you know what? I'm gonna see if I can bring him up real quick because I don't want to miss mislabel the guy. All right. Here's what he looks like. All right. This is a picture of a face right here. Okay. So this guy right here, 22, admitted he plotted to commit a hate crime, which is funny that it's read this way too. He pleaded guilty or admitted that he plotted to commit a hate crime, namely that he planned to shoot women at a university, and was arrested in July of 2021 and has been in custody ever since. No bail for him. Okay. And this is being quoted as saying the Assistant Attorney General, the gender-based hate and bias-motivated threat of violence exhibited by this defendant simply has no place in our society. The Department of Justice will remain steadfast in our efforts to investigate and prosecute those who carry out or attempt to carry out gender-based hate crimes to the fullest extent of the law. She said Ginkgo formulated a plot to kill women and intended to carry it out. Let's see. Hate has no place in our country, including gender-based hate, and we will continue to work with our law enforcement partners to vigorously prosecute any such conduct. I thought that this was a pretty interesting part to include, including gender-based hate. All right. Thankfully, our law enforcement partners working closely together prevented a deadly spree. Hey, bravo. Bravo. All right. They go into some other stuff here, but there's a part that I wanted to highlight. Ginkgo, identified as an incel or involuntary celibate. The incel movement is an online community of predominantly men who harbor anger towards women. I disagree with this. I disagree with this sentence right here. The incel movement is an online community of predominantly men who harbor anger towards women. Now, the reason why I disagree with it is this. Okay. If you're an incel, what are your reasons for choosing to go that route? And hear me out. Hear me out. Because in today's society, right, you access to sex, to
I think you're misinterpreting the title.
ooh,
Involuntarily means they're not doing it of their own volition.
but
It's being forced upon them by other people. They're putting the onus on the person who's not giving them the sex. It's
yeah, but
involuntarily celibate. They're saying they don't want to be celibate, but they have to be because the other people are not giving them the sex that they think they deserve.
see, that's
It's
where
in the title.
but see, that's where I challenge the label though, because if you were to
This is
say,
a
I don't know,
self-imposed label. This is not a label other people have given them. They're choosing to call themselves that.
my,
At the very beginning of the article, he said a self-identified incel.
yes. Now, but my reasoning for saying that I think guys like this, they choose to be self-imposed because other people, in my opinion, impose it on them. In today's society, it's easy to pay for sex. So if these guys really wanted to get some, let's say they couldn't use game, looks, and charm or whatnot. If you got money, hey man, there's escorts or people simply seeking to pay their rent that they could go and reach out to. So to say that they're involuntarily celibate, to me,
you do understand they call themselves that, right?
I hear you say that, but my counter to that is they're calling themselves that because they're allowing other people to call them an incel.
I don't think that's how that works. If you call yourself something, it's not because you're allowing other people to call you that. You're calling yourself that because that's what it is.
No, 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 no. I went monk mode for 6 months. All right. And my reason for going monk mode was I wanted to see if I could not be ruled by, biology and my urges, right?
Mhm.
And in that 6 months, man, was there temptation? Yes. my reason for voluntarily choosing to be celibate. Yes, yes. No, hold on.
That's the difference.
I'm going to wrap this in though. I'm going to wrap
Sure.
this in. My reason for voluntarily choosing to be celibate was to learn how to control myself. All right, not be thinking about sex or anything like that and focus on building up myself.
So self-imposed.
Self-imposed. So it was a self-imposed celibacy voluntarily. All right. I think that if somebody identifies as incel, they're not trying to identify as incel. They're allowing somebody else to label them as an incel and they just accept it. And that's where I think that the mindset of that can be changed.
How does one determine if a person is involuntarily celibate?
The
To
essentially
label somebody involuntarily celibate, how do you know? You
I think
can't
it's the
label
market.
somebody something if you don't know what they are or what they do. These
Bingo.
self-identifying as incel is not allowing somebody else to label you. You are labeling yourself. You are doing some heavy mental gymnastics here. Like, I mean, if I call them something else, that's me labeling them. If they legitimately have a website for incels, identify themselves as incels, and somebody else calls them an incel, the other person did not in any way label them something they weren't already calling themselves. Like, they are identifying themselves as incels because they are putting the onus of their celibacy on someone else, not on themselves. That's why it's called involuntary celibate. If they were voluntarily celibate, it would be a different title and a different label.
Vol sale. So was I vol sale for those 6 months, Joe?
You were monk mode. It's fine. It's just not the same thing. And
Hmm.
it's not the same thing even remotely. Now, somebody throwing the word incel at somebody because somebody says something inappropriate or something they don't like, because people just love to just label somebody if they're just anti whatever the person's talking about. They
Uh,
just love to throw some shit around because they think it makes them win the argument, and they
yep.
just, oh, you're an incel.
He's a
That's a different
misogynist.
that's a different story. That's a completely different story. But if they've literally created a haven for incels, call themselves incels, they are not being labeled by other people. They are controlling the narrative of their own label. That's a very different story.
Hmm. I'm gonna have to think on that a little bit more then because I hear what you're saying. I just don't agree.
Don't
Now,
mean don't mean you're right, but that's okay. It's
that's
okay.
true. That's true. Now, this guy did some or would have conducted some very heinous things. Now,
Yeah.
there were several documents that he did from it says a popular website from at least July of 2019 through mid-March of 2020, and he posted hundreds of times on this site. Why you would go post it on the public page or whether it's private, it's still data, right? It's still out there. A warrant can get access to these things
If
and
you
these
don't
pages.
think there's federal agents or
All,
federal monitoring of all public websites, you're nuts.
yep, that are all that are
But
already
that's the
on
thing. You
these
got to
sites.
understand. You got to understand. People want to be able to say whatever they want. They want to have the freedom to say whatever they want. We've talked about this before. You absolutely have the right to say whatever you want, but you are not free of the responsibility of what comes from what you say.
Yep.
So, but these people, they want a place where they can go and they can share their thoughts and they can share their beliefs. And so they created a website because they feel like if the only people tuning into that website are just the people who feel the same way, then it's not a big deal unless they start saying things like they're going to harm other people. And that's when federal agents and other people start tuning in and like, oh, okay, we got to shut this or not shut this down, but we got to take this person into custody and talk to them. And that's probably what happened.
Yep.
He got a little too rambunctious.
Now, this guy in one post was talking about going on, and I'm just going to shorten it here, but conducting some
Mock shooting with juice
yeah,
out of a water gun.
violence against women and couples. So according to this guy, which I'm going to label him on the extreme side of the word, because that's something that I want to talk about later, is do you look at all incels similarly based on the history of what some incels have done? So I'm going to want to bring that up later. But in May of 2014, there was a guy, Elliot Roger. This was a very large case. Like, it's kind of funny because I forgot about this case until I read the name and I was like, oh yeah, I remember that. That kind of goes to show how some things, when it happens, and unless you're intimately involved with it, like, you're just going to forget until the next big thing pops up. But this guy Rogers back in 2014 killed 6 people and injured 14 others, and a lot of what Elliot Rogers had in his manifesto was about being an incel and having hate towards the opposite gender, which to me is interesting because of this. That gives a lot of power external to yourself. And also
What does?
when I look at what sex does to different people, I find it interesting that sexual feelings, sexual activities can literally ruin a person's life, whether they're getting it or not.
Yeah,
You know,
totally.
there are people that get angry at the opposite sex, or let's say they're attracted to the same sex. I don't know. This is 2022.
Doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
Sex in general is sex. It doesn't really matter.
Yeah, if you're not getting any sex, that drives you to lose your mind. I can't understand that, man.
I mean, I can.
I mean, you got monks out here living in Tibet and temples. You don't see them out there.
But
Uh
the key,
Voluntary versus involuntary.
no,
Oh,
no. The connotation of voluntary versus involuntary, though,
okay.
the incels are putting the responsibility of their lack of sex on someone else. They're
Hmm.
blaming someone else. They're saying the other person is controlling their sex life, or all women, or all men, or all anyone other than themselves are controlling their sex life. That's the difference. Monks go and do it because they want to do it. And sex isn't an issue for them because they're not thinking about it. And the onus of their celibacy is on themselves because they control that. I think, like you said earlier, anybody could have sex anytime, legally, morally, you know what I mean, in a normal fashion, whatever normal looks like, without hurting anyone, with approval, you know what I mean, with you know, um, that can happen. I think the people who are struggling with this are having issues discovering stuff about themselves. They just have to look inside. They just have to figure out what it is that they're doing wrong, and that's okay. It's okay to say I'm doing something wrong. I'm not saying there's not something up because, dude, some of us are just fucking weird, dude. Like, and like I'm fucking weird, man. Like, I'm. It's not like people were just throwing sex at me. You know what I mean? Like when I was younger, it wasn't. It was very different. But like that's the thing is you gotta take some ownership on yourself.
Hmm.
There's no grand conspiracy that women are gonna stop you from having sex. Like they're not doing it to you specifically. Like
Yes.
they have the right to say no to whomever they choose to. And let's just put it this way: more often than not, they're saying no than they're saying yes. Otherwise, there'd be so much goddamn dick in their life they wouldn't be able to leave the house. You know what I mean? Like that's the thing. Is like you got to understand is statistically you're probably weird, bud. That's okay. Just work on yourself a little bit and don't obsess over it so much. Cuz
Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I don't the thing is I'd like to hear from somebody who's not like that guy Genko. You know what I mean? Like that obviously is an extreme. I bet you there's loads of dudes out there in the community who are not batshit crazy.
Ooh, hey, there you go. Hey, look, if you're listening to this and you
You identify as
self-identify
that. Yeah.
as incel, look, we'd love to have a chat with you.
Yeah.
Shoot us an email at just.joe.king.podcast@gmail.com or write us on our Facebook page and we can set that up. I'd
Yeah.
love to chat with what you observe within the community itself, what you why you identify as incel, and what other things that you would like for people to know that you had now have a platform to speak on, and we could work out the details. If you don't want to show your face and name, we can work out the details. I'd like to authenticate that you're not just some random person um that just wants to come on and try and get some shine, but we can work out those details offline. So if you identify as incel and you want to have a platform to come and speak on, hit us up.
Yeah.
There's a couple of things that I'd want to highlight to this, and then we can move on to the main thing. This guy actually attended Army basic training from August through December of 2019, and it said he was discharged for entry level performance and conduct. So if I'm reading this right, he never made it out of basic training, but that's a long time period to
He got
be.
recycled.
Yep. And
He got
so
recycled. So
so
this guy he had issues. I mean, even if the army's like, you're awkward, bud. Maybe there's something there. I wish Army would have paid a little bit more attention. Maybe they would have been able to get him some help, and we wouldn't even be in this position where he has to go to prison now. You know what I mean? Maybe they could have got him some help, and he could have not been so. Because what scares me is that if he made it through basic training, what he would have done with that training, and how that
so
would have painted veterans in a bad light.
Yep. Now explain what recycled mean to those who may not know.
So if something happens to you in basic training, like you get a small injury, something not too crazy where you can heal from it for a couple of weeks and then do the training again, what they'll do is they'll even sometimes it sucks because you'll be 2, 3, 4 weeks in, 5 weeks in, and then something happens and then you got to start the whole process over again. Um, but it happens. And I mean, for some of us who want the opportunity to serve, it is nice that they don't just kick you to the curb. They give you another chance. Um, there's people I've met who were recycled 2 or 3 times because of some kind of recurring injury and then eventually made it through. It sucks. It sucks a lot. But I mean, honestly, basic training, a lot of us look back at it like, wow, that was fun and amazing. It sucked, sure, but it was fun and amazing. But
Yeah,
if
like it sucks while you're in it, but
yeah,
afterwards you're like, you know
you
what?
look
It
back
really
and you're
wasn't
like,
that
yeah,
bad. Now, typically getting recycled happens for something physically related, but there are
hmm
other things that you can get recycled for, like failure to perform. If you can't, do drill proper or recall, certain basic facts that you should know, as you do get quote unquote kind of tested for your knowledge of the things that they're teaching you, they can recycle you back for that. I saw somebody get recycled because they didn't show remorse for something that
mm,
they were expected to show remorse for. So
red
they
flag.
did something wrong and they just simply didn't apologize, and I thought that was an interesting reason to move somebody
It's a
back in
red
their
flag.
training.
Lack of remorse is a red flag.
And then okay, another big one, and then we'll move on, is fighting. Like I've seen, like
Yeah,
not
I've
necessarily
seen
the
that
fight
happen several
itself,
times. Yeah.
but it's kind of like the totality of why and like how jacked up, both or one person was. They'll almost like you back for that. So for this guy who we're talking about in this article, the FBI had conducted surveillance. They watched him while he was exiting and doing surveillance at the local college, and they moved in and took him off the streets and had enough to charge this kid for something that he was planning on doing. So bravo to the government. I'm just gonna say government for keeping us safe. Like, there's some people that want to, big brother this and big brother that. Hey, look, it's a big world. I've traveled around this world, and I'm going to tell you right now, it's not the perfect system. It's not the best system, but I've been in some places that systems ain't as good as ours. And I challenge you to go and visit and live in those places and see if you still feel the same way. All right. Do you have anything to add, Joe, man, before we move on?
Yeah, that's a terrible story.
It is, man. It's good that they got the guy. I think that the term incel has a lot of negative connotation to it. I think that
Well, it's the
it
same. It's
shouldn't.
the same as any label. That's why, honestly, you shouldn't voluntarily label yourself. Every time you put a label on yourself, you limit yourself.
Mm,
Like you put left and right limits on yourself. You say I'm this, so I can't be that. And that's just the way humans are. That's the way people, society is. And if three three of your demographic do something wrong in the course of 6 months or a year or 5 years, it doesn't matter. Three, four, five people, even though there could be potentially hundreds of thousands of you, doesn't fucking matter. They label the whole fucking thing. Uh, we see it as we see it as cultures. It happens to the black community. It happens to the Spanish community. It happens anytime there's a fight. You see it all the time. They label everybody. It's like all of a sudden we're all bad because a few people did something stupid or evil or awful. But that's society. They love to do that, and then they love to demonize you. So
mm.
you label yourself, you're just giving people words to use as control, as power.
Yep. There you go. So there's this term, and I've heard people mess this term up, and I'm like, no, no, no. We need to go back to square one over here with the term civilian. I was listening to this podcast, and I'm just gonna call them entertainers. A former Navy officer who I know is doing very successfully as a entertainer, podcaster, event promoter in Vegas, and he works with a lot of, I'm just going to say, adult entertainers, and they throw the word civilian out there
Mhm.
in reference to people that aren't a part of the adult
Of their
entertainment.
community. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'm like, no, 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 no. There is no changing of that word. So let's look at the word civilian. According to dictionary.com, a civilian in the noun version is a person not in the armed forces or in the police force, as an adjective of denoting or relating to a person not belonging in the armed services or police. And civilians under international humanitarian law are persons who are not members of the armed forces and are not combatants if they carry arms openly and respect the laws and customs of war. Now, that's important to note because if you're under a declaration of war, there's different treaties and laws that apply for people that are labeled as civilians versus people that are labeled as armed forces and or militia for that area as well. And it's important to even note that distinction because you could be a part of a militia, sanctioned or not, and have different rules and things that can apply to you. I learned that today, man. It's so much gray area when it comes to the violence and how things should be prosecuted, that it's kind of interesting. And you could spend, oh man, hours and hours and hours of just reading through military history, law, uh, the different applications based on what country you're in, what war it is. And man, it's, to me, that kind of stuff is fascinating. But
Yeah.
I wanted to go on a tangent about the word civilian, because if you're an adult entertainer, a civilian is not a regular person that doesn't know what your industry is. Uh, let's get that straight, and get that straight quick, fast, and in a hurry. All right. But our
I
main
think
topic
I
today.
think they're still going to do it.
Yeah, they are.
I think it doesn't matter.
Hey,
I
look.
think, and again, you got to understand too. This is again the whole thing with labels, right? So they work in a specific industry, and anyone not in that industry is civilian to them. But I think what's unique about this juxtaposition is that as as sex workers or adult entertainers or whatever they want to call themselves, civilian almost means they're very they're suburban. You know what I
Hmm,
mean? Like I feel like it does have connotation. Like doesn't necessarily mean it's because they're not in uniform. It's because they would never do the things that some of these other people would do.
yes.
You know what
Yeah.
I mean?
Yeah, I can
So
see
I
that.
think I think almost like a colloquialism, it works. You know?
Ooh, this is what I gotta say. Hey, Michael Sartain, the next time somebody comes on your podcast that's in the adult industry or entertainment like that, and frivolously throws out the word civilian, well, Joe just gave a good explanation as to why it can be used. But the next
Mhm.
time somebody do that, as a veteran, check them, please. Thank you.
Or have a couple of them come on our show and let's have a chat about this.
All right, man. When we were transitioning out of the military, there were a lot of unknowns. For me,
Mhm.
my transition out came very abruptly. I'm not sure if your transition from military to civilian was as abrupt as mine was. Everybody's situation is different, but there's a lot of thoughts that go into what's next.
Yeah.
Now, did you have an abrupt ending, or was there a little bit of a heads up when you were about to transition?
Is a little bit of both. It was a little bit abrupt, a little bit of transition. Like I knew I was getting out. I knew I was getting medically discharged. I was going through a med board. That process is supposed to take a certain amount of time. During that time, you're supposed to go to. They had done a whole bunch of not streamlining, but they had done a whole bunch of work in the army to create wounded warrior battalions where people can go and focus on getting out and getting all the resources that they needed and stuff like that. And Fort Bragg was like, "Fuck you! You're going to keep working every minute until you're out." And that's what they did to me. So I didn't get a chance to do any of that. I didn't have any resources given to me. I didn't have any resume writing courses, or I didn't get shit. Like I literally the army did the med board process, but none of the get out of the army stuff for me, because the unit I was in was like, no, no, you're going to work until you die, that kind of thing. And so I got lucky.
Hmm.
I got lucky. Otherwise, I wouldn't have had a job lined up when I got out. Mostly because I spent my entire adult life in the army and I didn't know what the fuck I was doing. Like I didn't know what to do. I didn't know what to do. Um, I had never written a resume before. They didn't provide me any resources to teach me. Like, some people go through the like TAPS, I think it's called, the Transition Assistance Program. I didn't get any of that. They were like, no, no, you're going to keep working. We can't replace you, which is that horse shit they like to throw around.
Mm,
Basically, fuck you. I don't care what happens to you. I need you to keep doing this so I don't have to do it or get somebody else to do it. Um, I got lucky. My neighbor knew of a program because their father created it. So you met the guy. I know you
Mhm.
met the guy because we did this training program that I got in, and so that's how that happened. I still applied. I still did everything the normal way. I like to think I got in because I deserved it, but it didn't hurt that my neighbor's father was the guy who created the program. So that's the only reason I had a job when I got out. And it wasn't even guaranteed. Like I got out thinking this is my option because I never got a chance to go to any job fairs. I never got a chance to speak to a counselor or anything. Like nothing. Like Army, Fort Bragg said, "Fuck you." And I know lots of people have had better experiences with the out processing and the med board process and all that. So, but it was like you're going to have a year-long med board process. It was done in 9 months, and that was it. I was out the door. So it was
So
chaos.
I heard that one of the things that helped you was networking.
Yeah. But I didn't know that. Like I got lucky. At the
Yes,
time, I didn't understand the concept of networking like that. Like in
bingo.
the army, I did it. You know what I mean? You do stuff like that. But I I didn't think I could go around to other active duty families and be like, "Hey, do you got a place I can work when I get out?" You know what I mean? Like that I should have been able to attend at least a couple of job fairs before I got out of the military, but it just wasn't in the cards for me. Um, and at the time, n- I didn't really know how to argue that or stick up for myself or get
Mm,
myself in the Wounded Warrior Battalion so I could go through the process the right way. Um, and yet I landed in a job with you and a bunch of other people who were given that opportunity the legitimate way. And to hear how good that process was, I'm like, God damn, why could what was it about me that I didn't deserve that too? You know what I mean?
yeah. Now, so I'm going to share how my transition was because I alluded to my Air Force career ending abruptly. So I've shared
Hmm.
on this podcast in an earlier episode that I have a heart disease. Matter of fact, I'll tell you specifically hypertrophic cardiomyopathy. In short, there's parts of my area that's thick, which is what hypertrophic means. And long term, like that could kind of cause your heart to overwork itself. And you won't live as long as a regular healthy person would. So for me, I found out about my heart disease kind of by accident. You can go back and listen to that story to find out, how I found out. And the short version of it was I knew I may not be able to stay in the service, but finding out as abrupt as I did caused me to now go, man, all right, I still had 2 years left on my, no, I had just re-enlisted as a matter of fact. So I had another 3 years because I did an initial 6 year enlistment and then I re-upped for 4. And I found out maybe 9 months into my re-enlistment that I had the cardiac disease, and there was a high chance that I wasn't going to be able to stay on active duty with it. So in the Air Force, at the base that I was at, because it's not just the service, but I think part of it is the climate that you're in at the time, what the ops tempo is at the location that you're in, all of that stuff. For me, I was as prepared as I could have been with having the opportunity to attend what's called TAPS, which is the Transition Assistance
Transition assistance program. Yeah.
Program. And I don't know if they still call it that, but there's still by law some different things that a military service member is supposed to get as they're transitioning out. All right. And if you ask 100 different people, you'll hear 100 different stories as to how effective it is. But you talked, so for you talked about not really knowing the power of networking at the time, and that's something that I want to highlight right now. The opportunities and the people that you're going to meet in your current job, if you're active duty now, you would say your current unit, Okay. If you're outside of the military, your current employment situation that you're in now, you never know with the people that you work with where they're going to go on to and things like that. How I found out about the job that me and you came in at the same time, a really close friend of mine who we're no longer on speaking terms told me about the program and to apply for it, and he harassed me about applying for it, and I did, and I didn't get the program that I thought I was going to be applying for, but I got referred to a different one. I had never heard about this program because it was in the Delaware, Maryland, Virginia area, which is short for DMV, is kind of how people say it. And I was living in Kansas. So when I made the transition after I had gotten accepted into this internship, I moved from Kansas all the way to Maryland on a little bit of blind faith, if you will, hoping that this internship would pay off. But similar to you in how you knew about the opportunity, for me, it was also part of my network. So I want to highlight that because both of our stories are similar in that the people that you work with, the people that you encounter, whether they're peers, subordinates, or superior, you never know what opportunity it can present itself. So for the most part, for me, my opportunities and things that I've landed, I can attribute to just doing my job and doing my job well. The job that I got right after I got my heart condition was because one of my bosses recommended me for it. Not because he liked me. Like me and him were buddy buddies, you know what I'm
Mhm.
saying? But
Mhm.
he knew that I did the job well and that there was a need for it. And he recommended me for it and I got it. And it was a great bridge because it was a temporary position and I knew that and I accepted that. But right as that position's funding ended, I had also gotten the current job that I'm in now. So there was a little bit of luck in that, that part. But the main thing that I want to highlight with that was that it was networking essentially, but doing a
Yeah.
good job where I was at that then allowed a superior to
Mhm.
recommend me for a different position that didn't it indirectly affected him, but it didn't really directly, like he gained nothing from it. You know what I'm saying? So he recommended me for something that he didn't gain a direct benefit from it.
Well, that's when you have a good leader and they care about you. You know what I mean?
Yes. Yes.
They want to see
And
you succeed just as much as they want to succeed. You know?
yep. And hey, this boss ripped my behind a couple of times because, he cared about his unit. He cared about the people. And if you didn't do things proper, he would let you know about it. But there's an article that was written by Sharon Spielman on the militarytimes.com website. And I would tell people, hey, they put out some pretty interesting articles, some really good stuff that it's not going to give you a blueprint, but it's going to give you some things to think about. So I'm not going to read through this article. I'm just going to highlight a couple of different things. There was somebody who was a commissioned officer for 6.5 years in the Air Force that said, I was very intentional about seeking out resources to help support a successful transition. That one sentence right there, to me, says a lot when I think about now what I would do, knowing what I know now, to try to help myself transition out of the
But
service.
but
Oh,
active duty, not commissioned, don't have the opportunity to actively, intensely seek resources. They have to apply to TAPS. They have to be approved by their command. They have to literally be given permission to seek resources when exiting service.
Hey, is that what y'all think out there? If you are a service member, let me know.
It's literally the process.
Is there a uh does commission officers, so commission in the military, typically you have to have a degree in order to be a commissioned officer. Do they have it better when transitioning out? That's what, yeah, y'all put it down in the comments and let us know.
I feel like I feel like you know the answer to this question. I'd love to hear some contrary story where it's like, as a young E4, I got all this I was an E6 when I got out, man. It sucked. Bet you a bunch of young people are like, dude, nobody helped me. They made it a pain in the ass. I had to ask for every time I needed to go somewhere, and they said no half the time. They don't. mm, I love the military, man, but they don't care about you.
Now, this person in this article worked as an aircraft maintenance officer where she was responsible for developing and executing maintenance support and aircraft sustainability project plans. That's a Joe's laughing because he knows what that's fancy for. But her degree was in public
Public relations.
a field completely the opposite of either of the industries that she served in. All right. So in this article, she talks about how she went to go attempt to bridge her military to civilian transition with an MBA, which is something that I have. I attained my business degree and my MBA after military service. But my reason for choosing it, even while I was in, was more because I wanted to have the ability to understand business processes. But here's the thing. You work in an industry long enough, right? If you're a 20-year or even if you're a 10-year person in the military, the work that you do and the skills that you can attain for working in an industry over a long period of time makes you an expert in that field if you do it long enough. You don't require a degree to consider yourself proficient in an area because you've been doing it, right? You can own your own business and your business can be a success or a failure, whether you have a degree or not. But the reason why I'm highlighting this is that in today's climate, having that degree can help you. And it is what it is. Right or wrong, whether you believe in it or not, it just helps you. Now, Joe,
I,
you have comments on this. I want to hear it.
I think with the level of training or the style of training that happens within the military, if you are taught to do something, or more specifically, as is most often the case, you are given a task with no training, no preparation, and you're told to do it. And the majority of the time, the service member will educate themselves, sort it out, make it happen, and the next thing you know, they're asked to do this all the time because they did it without question, without complaint, usually complaining, but behind the scenes, so nobody can hear you. Because what the fuck does it matter if they hear you complain? Um, and if you did it well, you are now saddled with the burden of responsibility to continuously do this because you are now the subject matter expert in something that you were not an expert in 10 minutes prior. That's that's how most of our careers go. We're given something, we're told to make it happen, we make it happen. No excuses. We just make it happen. That's how we gain expertise in things. There's training for lots of stuff in the military, loads of stuff in the military.
I
But
was
for
just going to say that.
example, oh no, that's the thing. There's loads of opportunity for training. There's loads of ways to learn something new, gain expertise in things. But in my opinion, the military has a knack for giving for just something coming up, even though it's been done a million times or somebody's done it before, that person's not there. Or they PCS or ETS or move to a new location if you don't know what those means. Um, and they can't pass you the information. So you got to learn how to do it all yourself. And now you're suddenly an expert in something. because you had to learn how to do it all yourself. It happens to a lot of us. Fun little story. I was working at Battalion as a commo guy, young E3, didn't know shit, didn't know anything. And one of the guys in the shop was an E4 or an E3 about to make E4. And they were moving him to one of the company shops to go work down on the line. And he worked with the previous E4 or corporal or sergeant, and she taught him a bunch of stuff before she went on to Korea, right? So she PCS to go to Korea. She changed stations, went to Korea. The week he was supposed to take over the shop, he went AWOL.
AWOL means absent without leave.
Yes, without he just left. He's like, I don't want to do this. He left.
Hey, hold on. He bounced and did this.
Yeah, he beat feet.
Beat feet.
And guess who got to take over the commo shop?
Ooh. Ho ho.
And the person who was training him had already PCS'd.
So you were now the de facto go-to person as not the high. Well, you were the highest ranking at the time.
They could have just drawn straws, or they might have liked the other people more than me. That's just how it fucking goes. So I got shit on. I got thrown into a company shop, and I didn't know anything. I didn't know nothing. And you know what's great about that? Nobody came by to show me either. They just said, you're going to do this. And then the beauty of it is people were pissed at me for not knowing what to do.
Wait,
And,
so Joe,
hold on,
couldn't
it gets
just
better.
go, I just got here? Or, hey man, I'm not trained for this. I'm learning. You couldn't just say that?
I mean, as a non-commissioned officer of E6 and another one who was in E7, wouldn't it have behooved them to have trained me or come down every once in a while and maybe he said, hey, here's some books, maybe fucking read this? Like, don't get me wrong, I definitely told some people I don't know what the fuck to do.
I was just going to ask you that. Did you raise your hand and go, hey, Sergeant Nieves does not know what the F is going on right now?
Honestly, at the time too, on top of that is like everything was moving so goddamn fast. I didn't know what the fuck I didn't know what to do. I didn't know that I could ask for people to help, but I did tell them I don't know what I'm doing. And I mean, that should have been very fucking obvious with the fact that they purposefully trained the other guy to take over before he went AWOL. As normal functioning adult human beings, the concept didn't occur to them that they should also try to do the same for me. That's why I legitimately think it's because they didn't like me. I was young. I was a shithead from New York. I was also very fucking weird. Like I was very awkward. Like I'm not the person I was, 20 something years ago. But more specifically, I didn't connect with people like that. Like I didn't connect with people like I do with you guys. And look how long it took for you guys to be my friends. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
but
not the easiest person to fucking get along with.
No, I liked you from the jump. Like I liked you from the jump, but
Yeah.
But also, I default like people until they give me a reason to
not to,
like them. Like some of the other people that we had that
well, see,
earned their way out of a friendship.
There's plenty of people like that in that group. No, but like the thing is I get that there's a lot going on in the military. This was pre 9/11, so it's not like we didn't have time on our hands. You know what I mean? It was before all the crazy nonsense of the world changed everything.
Ooh, and see, that's where our experience differs. You were pre 9/11. I didn't enlist until September of 2002.
Yeah. So and the thing is now I understand there's a lot of things I could have done to help myself. As a 18-year-old just joined the military, trying to fucking make it in the military, trying to understand life as an adult now, having never been one. um, I didn't know what I could do to help myself. And I wasn't smart enough to pick up a goddamn book. There was no Google. You know what I mean? There was no cell phone, smartphone that I could just go through real fast and figure out everything I needed to do. I didn't know what to do, and I fell into myself rather than try to reach out for help. I got
Hmm.
I got super depressed, and nobody came to help me until another NCO was assigned to the shop because the shop sucked. I was doing the best I could. I learned several things over time. It took time to learn them, and there were some NCOs who did reach out, but like at the time, I didn't comprehend that they were helping me because I was so trapped in the despair and the trying to sort through everything. And but the thing was I was actually very good at fixing things. I was extremely good at fixing things. It was the processes of the paperwork and the supply system and ordering parts and pieces, maintaining a supply of batteries and other equipments and installation yards and shit like that. There was a lot of things that it took me a long time to figure out because nobody said these are things you need to know. And I don't know what I don't know. I knew how to fix all the radios and the equipment in the unit. Like I could do that blindfolded. And I did that exceptionally well. But the irony is that when I started to do good and I started to get better, some of the motherfuckers would tell me I was arrogant for learning how to be the expert and being good at what I was doing. Finally, instead of being called a shitbag, I was being called arrogant.
That still baffles me because we talked about that on this show in one of our prior episodes. That it's interesting to me that instead of looking at that as pride in
Mhm,
doing a job well,
mhm.
you had people externally,
As a
in
young
short,
soldier,
hating.
as a
You
young
know,
soldier, what do you do when you're not doing well and you're being called shit and you do well and they call you shit?
you said doo doo and shit.
But what do you do? Like what can you like it was it was the same kind of like it's baffled me for years. Um I've talked about it in therapy many, many times because I always was like, this is the unit I deployed to Iraq with. This is the unit I stay in touch with. Like these are people who I have really fond memories with,
Mhm.
but none of them really know how poorly they treated me, and I don't really know how they perceived me
Hmm.
at that time. So it's like this weird thing where we're all like remembering the good times and they think they were really good times. And I look back at them like I stay in touch with you guys because I have the most memory with you guys, but you guys treated me like garbage, Like there's a few people I really liked and loved in that unit, but they treated me like dog shit. And like everybody's like, "Oh, we're so proud of you, you guys. You guys are doing so well and all this stuff." And I'm like, "That's great, man. But you hated me. I don't know why you like me now. And I wish I understood it. Like I don't comprehend it. This went into a
Hey,
whole therapy session, but it's
no, no, no. That was good. I'm glad that you shared it. I'd like to know for the people that get the chance to hear this. I'm actually going to chop this up and make it a little bit more shorter and pose it as a question out there. To the people listening, give us a critical response. I don't want to, oh, he's just whatever, yada yada, without offering anything.
yeah.
For those of y'all that hear that, let us know what you think about that. Have you experienced something like that yourself? Put it down in the comments. This is why we do this. We want to knowledge share for people out there and maybe offer some solutions or some advice if you're experiencing something very similar. Okay. So listen, respond, and let us know. Now, Joe, I'm very curious. Oh, you know what? No, no, no. I have to end this real quick. There was another point in this article, and then we'll move to the word of the day and close out the show because we are over an hour. But I thought everything that we talked about was really good. So I didn't want to cut it and just kind of roll with it. This person in this story had participated in a Hiring Our Heroes fellowship program. Joy and I went through an internship that was a part of a cohort and a fellowship as well. They also talk about these different um, partnerships that are in place that are out there. You can seek these things, you can look them up. Hiring Our Heroes is very popular, very front facing. You can Google it and learn all about the different opportunities and things that they're a part of, all of the resources that can be offered as well at these events. It's not an automatic thing where, hey, I'm a throw on a suit and show up all, clean shaven and everything like that, and I'm just gonna walk in and walk myself into a job. It doesn't work that way. It doesn't work that way.
Not
But what
anymore.
it but what
Maybe
it
in the
can,
80s, 90s.
yeah, what it can do though is that it can help prepare you for what's out there. It can also give you the opportunity to network with other people who are going to be there. I challenge you to do this. Talk to other people who are there, hear their stories. If they give you the opportunity to talk, share your story with them. Exchange phone numbers, business cards, LinkedIn. All right. A lot of people crap on LinkedIn, but I'm going to tell you right now, I've turned down 5 job opportunities over the last 2 years because while they were good opportunities, they're not the right fit for me because of what I have going on personally. But give me another 3 years and some of these opportunities come back up. Your boy may not be working and living in the CONUS. That's all I'm going to say. But take opportunities like fellowships, internships, hire our heroes. I'm going to put all of this stuff in the description on the Facebook and YouTube page. Like I said, if you're listening to this on any of the podcasting platforms, you're going to have to go over to
This
any of those 2 social
man,
medias to get those links.
she got a fellowship working with PayPal. How
Mm-hmm.
many E4s and below you think they're giving that opportunity to?
Now let's close.
Shenanigans. This is all
Now,
shenanigans.
now let's close on that because that's a fair point. All right. So because she was a commissioned officer, by default, she has a bit of a leg up
Does she?
because of
Because she
her.
wasn't even working in the same career field as her diploma.
Yeah, but the having the fact that she was an aircraft maintenance officer, which
I
was
bet you
likely a
I bet you
lead.
there was an E4 who ran the entire fucking thing, did
Oh,
all the goddamn work day in and day out for 10 years, or probably higher ranked than the E4 at the time. But let's say 5 or 6 years, right?
huh.
Not as deserving.
Hey, there's a tactical and there's strategic. The operators working at the tactical level can be just as strategic because they're the ones doing the job. They can see where you can make the twists and
Mhm.
turns and change in policy that can be efficient and all of that jazz. Just as deserving, but you help yourself by, hey, look, titles matter. Titles matter. So you help yourself by attaining the best position that you can while you're in. Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force sounds a whole lot better than your, other Chief Master Sergeants that they have the same grade. Pay is a little bit different just because they're the Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force, but that Chief Master Sergeant of the Air Force still, and it sucks that it's kind of this way just by title, a major or even a captain can land a better position coming out of the service on certain credentials, because you can have a chief master sergeant of the Air Force that has a doctorate's degree. All right, that's
Yeah.
a different person though. That's you're talking outlier. All right, but if you're following within the normal standard of
Not
stat,
saying you're wrong, because the officers all have degrees, yada yada yada.
yeah,
But majority of the time, the enlisted do a lot of the work,
yeah.
most of the work, most
Mm-hmm.
of the work. Let's say most of the work, because the officers sure as shit aren't doing it. They don't want to. Depending on where you are, depending where you are and what you're doing,
Mm.
at
The
some point, the officers stop being part of that work and they become part of management. And once they're part of management, that's all they're doing is management. I,
See, I
there are
didn't see
plenty of
different.
officers who know loads of shit. Like there's plenty of officers who are very hands-on and and integrated in the process. I'm sure there's plenty. But in the experiences that I had, and I had a lot of great officers that I worked for and worked with, and there were some who were exceptionally hardworking, but there were many who were not. And
Hey,
just out of the simple fact that they have a degree means they automatically are more qualified is not true.
yeah,
It's not true,
100%,
but
100%.
it's a whole nother conversation.
Hey,
But
hey,
more
that is
deserving
another
is not
conversation.
true.
Yeah,
That's the thing. It feels like when it comes down to opportunities, they save the good ones for the officers and for
hmm.
the people with big titles like sergeant major. Like I get that getting sergeant major is a lot of work and it takes dedication and stuff like that. But you're telling me an E4 who knows the work and can do the job couldn't potentially be more beneficial to a company when that sergeant major's already retired once and probably will retire again soon?
Hey, they could. Now the onus is up to that individual person to highlight themselves and mark. It's not an automatic market. Like if I'm a command sergeant major, I automatically have a marketable thing that you can just based off of the title alone says that you have extensive training and leadership qualities and this, that, and the third.
They
The onus
the
then it's harder. It's
is
not
the E4
fair.
is
The
the E4 getting
hold on. The onus then goes to that person to they're just gonna have to do more work to market themselves. That's all I'm saying.
when they're given permission to do so?
Yeah.
But the sergeant major doesn't need nobody's permission.
Yeah,
The
true that.
officers don't need no permission. The
True
young
that.
service members aren't being given. All right, sorry.
No. Hey, this is good. This is good. Look, this article right here just talked about different things that this lady did that helped set herself up. I actually so we only went two topics and I left it at those two topics because I knew that there was a lot that we could talk about. There's so much more that we could get into when it comes to the thoughts of helping yourself transition out. I reached out to several of my peers, some that are still in, who are on terminal now, that are getting out, that has some input, some that have been out just as long as Joe and I have, and some that have gotten out fairly recent within 2 to 3 years that still have that military stink on them, if you will. Like for me, you can't tell that I was in the service based off of just how I look and act. At least I don't think so. Joe, same way. You can't look at Joe and tell that he was, an Army veteran or whatnot. But that's our episode for today. Joe, do you have a word of the day, brother?
Always, man, always.
All right, let's hear it.
I'm gonna softball this one to you.
I'm gonna still mess it up.
Contrition.
Ooh, that's like short for or that's long for contrite. Um,
But what does it
contrition,
mean?
contrition is
Oh, you spell it right off the jump. Nice.
yeah. Contrition is where you contrite, something short and straight to the point, something like that.
No,
Dang it!
no.
Oh.
The state of feeling remorseful and penitent.
Okay, state of feeling remorseful and spell penitent.
PENITENT.
Okay. See, save. So contrition. State, and I spelled it a little bit wrong, but y'all see it. Y'all get it. State of feeling remorseful and penitent. I should have had the F capitalized on that. Okay. How do I use that in a sentence?
It's a state of being remorseful. So
He shown contrition in the statement he provided to the police.
I mean, kind of. Yeah, let's go with that.
Okay. Hold on.
I know contrition is like a good example is like when you go to church and you do The thing where
Re-
you step in the booth and you talk to the priest.
confessionals,
That's the shit.
or you
Yeah.
like repent and
You're in a
all of that
state of
stuff.
contrition. You're in a state of feeling remorseful. You're doing contrition. You're confessing your sins. That kind of stuff.
Okay.
It's a
All
simple
right.
example.
Cool. Hey, look, this has been another episode of the Just Joking podcast. I appreciate the people that are going to tune in on the replay. We had some people pop in and out on the live stream. Shout out to them. Hope they hit the like button. If you're going to catch us on the replay, hit the like button. If you're listening to this on audio and you want to contribute, shoot an email at just.joe.king.podcast@gmail.com or come on over to Facebook and YouTube and leave us a comment. We read them. All right. We read all of them. That's all I got to say. Joe, do you have anything that you want to close out the show with, brother?
Be good to each other, man. That's all you can do. Just be good to each other. Life would be a lot less problematic if you're just good to each other.
I like it. All right. We are going to close out the show with that. And until next time, peace.